Good evening and welcome to our informational forum on regarding opiate addiction and overdose awareness. Who would have ever thought that an everyday running into somebody in a town south of here and then a simple Facebook post would lead to an evening like what we're having this evening? And so at this time, I'd like you to know that we can thank Mona Levac-Baker for meeting Brett and John and posting the Facebook post. At that time, when she posted, she asked if someone would be interested in creating some kind of a celebration, because you have to admit, walking across the country is a pretty big deal. So when they got here, we wanted to make sure that they had some kind of celebration and recognition for all the wonderful things that they had done and all the awareness that they had created along the way. And when I read her post, it was at that time that I had a childhood friend who had lost 2 of her sons this past year. And you know, when someone you love and someone that you grew up with and you know is in pain, you often wonder, like, God, I wish there was something more that I could do. And I didn't know quite what to do until I saw Mona's post. And then I was like, I know what we need to do. Shelley and Dave have been about creating awareness, just as Brett and John have. And so I decided that organizing an event like tonight in Adam and Sean's memory was what we wanted to do. So, since that time, I have to tell you that I put the post on Facebook that we would be working, and since that time I've received many private messages from parents and loved ones of people who are addicted. And so, when we like to think that our small community is immune from things like this, I can tell you from the posts that I've received that it's here. It's not just south of here. It's not just east of here. It's here. And so tonight, we're going to hear some stories from different perspectives. We have speakers who have lost siblings. We have speakers who have lost children. And so we have the parent and the sibling perspective. And then we're fortunate enough to have some professionals from the area share what resources that we have here, so that if you ever find yourself in need of these resources, you will know where to go and where to start in dealing with this issue. With that being said, the childhood friend that I had who lost her 2 sons is here tonight, and she's going to speak to you along with her husband. And Dave, I'm sorry, I always leave you out, but Shelley grew up with me. So we have Shelley and Dave Yankowski.
First thing we'd like to do is thank Lori for all her hard work and the helpers that she had helping her putting this event together. We're thankful to have been invited to tell Adam's and Sean's story to all of you tonight. This story is Adam's story. Helpless, hopeless, grief, shame, overwhelmed, hurt. We felt all of this and a lot more when Adam overdosed the first time. We knew he had a problem. We spent our days and nights worrying about him and our grandchildren. Dave, being a trooper, and me being a dispatcher, made us all too familiar with overdoses, Narcan, and death. But never in our life would we have thought it would happen to us with our own child. Our child was supposed to know better. He had been taught right from wrong. He had been taught to be kind to others. He had been shown drugs and paraphernalia and told to stay away from the people who use them. He knew to be his own person. He was brave and he was smart. He was funny. Adam was our son and we loved him unconditionally. That's what parents do. They love their children and move mountains for them. They protect them. They make their children's lives better than their own. We had tried for 3 years to get Adam help. I brought him to our primary care doctor where he got medications to help with withdrawals, something for depression. I scheduled EAP counselors through work for him to talk to. If any of you knew Adam, he was a man of few words around people he didn't know, kind of like me. I picked him up from an appointment and asked him how it went. And he said, "It was dumb, Mom. I sat there for an hour and didn't talk, and they sat there for an hour looking at me." We pleaded, begged, cried, yelled, gave him the cold shoulder, tough love, just plain old love. We didn't know what to do anymore. Adam died twice in the same week. He died August 1st, 2017, when Narcan was administered twice. He was brought to the hospital and released. In a matter of 3 hours from death to life, he was back home. We wanted him to get help. I mean, he died. He was alive again. It seems surreal to us, and only from a sci-fi movie, that a person could be dead and then alive within a few minutes. Do doctors even know what happens to the human body cells when they die? Could a person have any type of damage to their body, their heart, their brain? We begged him to get help, and he kept saying he didn't need help. He had quit on his own several times, and he could do it again. He didn't want us to interfere. We started thinking, what if he decides he wants help? We have to get ourselves lined up for when he asks. We have to be ready. We asked the DHS worker what they recommended for help for Adam. They had stepped in and taken his children away, saying he could not be around them at all for now, so they must have an idea what to do for him. They didn't have any immediate resources for us. We decided to check with Acadia Hospital. They must know what to do. They had a 3-week waiting list before Adam could even be evaluated. We expected the ER to have something on the discharge papers, like contact such and such for a follow-up to overdose, addiction, death. Again, a dead end. In the meantime, things were not going well at home at all. The children had been living with us before the overdose, and now they couldn't stay in their home if Adam was there. I was at training that week, which left Dave to deal with the aftermath. Adam was upset he couldn't see the kids at all, and we were waiting for DHS to contact us and give us direction on what to do next. I really didn't want to go home anymore. I felt defeated. Sunday night, I was in bed, and I could hear Adam in the kitchen. He worked at a restaurant, but always waited to eat at home after work. I went to the bathroom, and he asked me if he was being too loud. Then he said, "Mom, I know this week has been rough, and I'm sorry. I will be better. I love you." I told him I loved him too, and we hugged for the last time ever. The next morning, August 7, 2017, I found my son Adam dead in his bedroom. The next story is Sean's story. On the morning of June 23, 2018, 4 days after what would have been Adam's 26th birthday, Dave and I were lying in bed watching some shows we had DVR'd. It was a lazy Saturday morning, and we rarely had those, so we took time to enjoy it. Sean had gotten a flat tire and stayed at a friend's house the night before. There was a knock on the door, and our dog started barking and ran towards the door. Dave got out of bed mumbling, "Friggin' Sean, forgot his keys, I bet." Dave came back 2 seconds later, and he said, "Get up. Something has happened to Sean, and they're here to tell us." Dave had made many death notifications to others and could tell from the lieutenant's face and my boss's face that things were not good. and our priest was there. It's never going to end well when the priest is there. They told us Sean had overdosed and died at his friend's house. They said there was nothing that could be done. We found out from the medical examiner's office a month later that Sean died from mixing cocaine and oxys. It's what they call a speedball on the streets. Some don't die from that, but for some it's a shock to their system and they don't survive. We couldn't believe what we were hearing. 10 months after Adam died, 4 days after Adam's birthday, 17 days before Sean's birthday, 6 days after Father's Day. All these numbers were flying fast through my mind. I cried out, "Sean, I told you I couldn't lose another son this way. You knew I wouldn't be able to do it." I collapsed on my couch sobbing, and when I looked up, the lieutenant, my boss, and the priest were all crying too. They'd done their duty to come tell us that our only son that we had left was dead. They knew as they pulled into the driveway and that knocking on our door would change our lives forever again. After the initial shock wore off, we were numb. There really wasn't much more to say. I wanted to make the people in my home feel better, but I didn't know how. I figured the easiest way was to show them that I was okay, even though that was far from what I was feeling. We went to the funeral home that afternoon. It was like deja vu, reliving the single worst moment in our life over again. I hadn't been able to see Sean, to say goodbye to Sean the way that I had been able to do that to Adam on his bedroom floor. They laid him in a room for me to go in and see him. He looked so peaceful, like he was sleeping. I hugged him, told him I loved him, and said goodbye. Preparing for a second funeral for your only child left is not very difficult, as you might think. What burial would we like? Cremation, like Adam. Do we want a viewing before Mass? Just a Mass, like Adam. As we were asked the different questions, the answers were all the same, just like Adam. The next day we went to the church to discuss the service. Some more just like Adam's, and we were back home. Sean had been dealing with his demons like Adam. He had started smoking marijuana at 13 years old. Like Adam, he had moved on to stronger drugs and kept trying to make the bad feelings go away. In the months after Adam's funeral, Sean struggled with depression. He would say, "Mom, I didn't just lose my brother, I lost my best friend." We tried to get him to go to counseling. He wouldn't go. He'd say he went, and then I never got the insurance bills, so I know he wasn't going. We yelled at him. We begged him to get help. We cried. He cried. We told him over and over that we loved him and that we didn't want him to die too. He went to our primary care doctor and was prescribed an antidepressant. I got Sean to talk to the priest. He spoke to him once that I knew of and told me he liked him. I found out after Sean died that he actually had gone to see the priest several times and called him quite often. Sean also had a few good friends he hung out with. We are happy he had good people that loved him while he was alive and going through so much. Grief is so hard. There's really no other word to describe, there's no word big enough to describe grief that we feel. We are empty, we hurt physically and emotionally. We have some really dark moments and some days that aren't as dark, and we don't know when that will go away, if ever. We pray, we love each other, and we pray some more. Sometimes we're angry at Adam and Sean and God. Other times we are sad for the hard time that our children had on earth. We worried so much about them all the time. We don't worry anymore. Our sons are together in heaven now. The two things a parent wants for their children is for them to be happy and safe. Adam and Sean are happy and they are safe now. It's not easy to stand up here in front of you guys and tell you about Adam and Sean. It's hard for us to admit we didn't know what to do for them. We are their parents. We should have done more. We should have tried harder. All that still goes through our mind. We stand here today and speak about our sons' lives because it's time it gets spoken about. We were too ashamed and too embarrassed to let people know what we were going through. If someone you know is suffering from addiction, talk to them. Tell them you love them and you want them to get better. The time to speak to each other about this epidemic is now. Talk to your children. Tell them about drugs. If anybody remembers the pit parties we used to go to, I never went to any, but if anybody remembers the pit parties we used to go to, and you were told, you don't drink, don't be drinking, shouldn't have drink, don't drink and drive, and the first thing you did when you got there was you grabbed a beer and you drank it. Well, those are the things that we used to do. We used to be able to do that. You go against your parents' words because you were cool. Now, today, being cool could mean dying. Using that drug, that one drug one time. And just so you know, drug dealers don't usually tell the truth. They don't put in the drug what they say they're selling you. Adam died of it was heroin that he had in his system, but it was more fentanyl than it was heroin. He was told he was buying heroin. So that one time you use a drug, you are now addicted, if you're not dead. You have to tell people just how one time can make you an addict forever. Tell them that one time could literally kill you. People who are addicted to substances, talk to family, your priest, your friends. Ask for help. Talk to us. Dial 211 and find out what resources are in your area. It's too hard to go through this alone. Thank you.
And like Shelley said, there are resources out there. And locally, we haven't been aware, or at least I wasn't aware until I started organizing and putting this night together, of what resources we did have out there. And there's a new program that's being spearheaded by a wonderful doctor in our area. So I'd like to call Dr. Guy Raymond.
Good evening. Thank you, Shelley and Dave, for sharing your story and certainly bringing to bear what we have to start facing as family, friends, community. So I thank you very much. Appreciate it. And of course, you know, we've got somebody who walked across the country to make us, or to wake us up a little bit. And again, I think this, well, actually, two people, John and Brett. My story is certainly not as long. It's probably longer, but I don't want to take the time to talk about it too much. But basically, I've been in medicine for almost 40 years. And one of the things that we do as doctors is we try to treat pain. And one of the tools in our prescription pad has been narcotics. And over the years, it's something that we've prescribed, well-meaning, and certainly with discretion, but there's certainly been a deterioration of that over the years, where discretion in many doctors and other providers' hands have been, the discretion has not been kept, and the prescriptions have become a little looser and a little more numerous. About 3 or 4 years ago, legislation came out where there was a limitation on the number of prescriptions and the number of medications that could be prescribed, or the amount, so that there would be some control over how much would be prescribed. And I think that worked because the prescription numbers have gone down. But unfortunately, it also created another culture, and that when a lot of addicted people couldn't get their legal medications, they turned to medications that were off the street. And this is what we hear about, is that what was first obtained as a legal medication became an addictive medication for some individuals, and most individuals who took them for long enough. So, and just as an example, I think if you remember, there's a pharmacy, you must have heard about this on the news, but there was a pharmacy in West Virginia that provided over 5 million prescriptions of narcotics, and the community was about the size of Fort Kent. So, you know, the numbers were astronomical, and there was no control. And so legislation came about to try to deal with that, but it's certainly inadequate. What we're finding and what we've come to realize over the years, addiction is not just bad behavior. It's a brain disease. It's something that happens to people unbeknownst to them, and some of them are predisposed to have an addictive personality or addictive behavior. 1 out of 10 people probably have this genetic predisposition, so it's very common. Not 1 out of 10 people will get addicted, but those who are exposed can immediately become addicted. I think what you described a while ago is an example of that. So, it being a brain disease and it being something that is kind of overwhelming, we've tried to attack it in many ways. Of course, counseling and medications, antidepressants, trying to deal with issues, life issues that seem to drive people to substance abuse. But unfortunately, once there is brain disease, it's difficult to treat without sometimes medication. So over the last 10 years or so, providers such as myself and other people who have elected to do this acquired a waiver in their prescription armamentarium where to allow us to provide Suboxone. And Suboxone is, just to keep it simple, is an opiate. It's a narcotic, but what it is that it's a fabricated narcotic that will go to and attach itself to the brain receptor that deals with narcotics and allows the release of hormones that give you pleasure. Okay, so that's what narcotics do. Suboxone goes to the same site and blocks it. Doesn't give you the high, doesn't give you the pleasure, but it does treat the withdrawal of the narcotic. So basically, what this new medication is to treat addiction by blocking the brain receptor site that gives you pleasure or a high. It doesn't block the other drugs. It doesn't block, other good brain hormones, but it does block that. So over the last several years, there have been clinics or providers that have been providing this to substance abuse dependent people, and successfully have been able to keep people out of withdrawal and keep people sober. The one good statistic from that we've seen so far is that we've been able to decrease the amount of overdose death in people who are treated by at least 50%. So that's a start. It is a small slice of the apple pie that deals with addiction, but it is one thing that we can provide to try to keep people out of being overdose, dying to overdose anyway. So what I have been fortunate enough to participate in is actually provide Suboxone to substance abuse victims or substance abuse people. At the Aroostook Mental Health Center in Madawaska, we opened a Suboxone clinic in March of this year and have been able to enroll, I'd say, a couple of dozen people to provide this service. Part of this is to be involved in a recovery program where people receive, they're basically screened and evaluated for this and have agreed to participate in this program. So it is a program that provides substance abuse counseling, education, and the medication to try to keep them sober. We call this medication-assisted treatment. Trying to keep somebody away from narcotics without this is near impossible. The treatment has been not very successful over the years, and we're seeing significant improvement in the treatment with this new medication. A big part of this program, however, is not just the medication, but also the counseling that comes with it and the education. What we have to try to do is to meet people where they are. When people come in asking for help or at least seeking some assistance in trying to stay sober, you have to provide them a safe place. I think this clinic has been a good place for that. People have been able to come in and feel that they're not being judged. They're being educated about their problem, and they're given a lot of resources and also camaraderie. Some of them like to hang around together and actually talk about things. So it is a support system as well. I'm very fortunate to be part of this program. I hope to continue. Right now we have about a dozen participants. We hope to see more. And we hope to expand hours as we need them. Right now, we're only providing services for half day a week because that's the volume that we're dealing with, but I'm sure that's going to grow. it is a great opportunity for me as a provider to be able to, I think, try to fix a problem that we were part of, and also to try to meet people where they are. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight, and hopefully to make you aware of this service. More to come, I'm sure, but thank you very much.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
The Suboxone, or whatever you called it, does that help with alcohol?
No, it doesn't.
It's only for-
It's only for, yeah.
Thank you.
What we provide is a very specific treatment for narcotics only, yeah, with the medication. Of course, the counseling and the substance abuse education would apply to other substances, of course.
Do you know anything about this drug called Vivitrol?
Yeah, Vivitrol is like a long-acting naloxone. It's a narcotic antagonist. It actually counteracts all of the action of any of the narcotics. Okay, so just as an example, naloxone, when you administer it, somebody who has a lot of narcotic on board, you can wake somebody up completely by just blocking it completely with naloxone. Well, Vivitrol is a form of naloxone, but it's been changed so that it can last in the body for several weeks, okay? So that's why it's used that way. So people can't get high with Vivitrol, and it also decreases the desire for a narcotic.
Right.
Right, you can't administer it yourself, like insulin or something like that, right? Yeah. Because again, it's part of a program. As you just told us, Suboxone can be abused. Now, it's abused in a way that is a little different from what, you don't get high from it, but what you do is you stop withdrawal from narcotics if you've been using. So if you run out of your drug of choice, then you get the Suboxone to carry you over until you have access. So it's kind of a bridging. So people abuse it in that way. And of course, there is a risk with Suboxone as well, because if you mix it with other medications, it can also cause respiratory depression and kill people as well. So it is a dangerous drug in that way. If you mix it with, let's say, benzos, which are something like Valium or Ativan, they accelerate or they stop the respiratory center. The combination can be very bad. So I agree with you, and wholeheartedly, it is a potential drug of abuse, but not in the same way that we're used to, okay? And we don't prescribe Suboxone unless somebody's enrolled in a program. Now, people can lie, they can cheat, whatever, they have access to whatever they want when they're out of the clinic, but we try to oversee their care. We try to, of course, we try to find out if they're actually using other drugs or other substances. So we screen them with drug screens, and they get the counseling, and the success is still not 100%, obviously, because people do fall out of the program. They get more education, they get more counseling, they have more frequent visits. We try to support them. We don't shun them or try to kick them out because it doesn't take much to have somebody fall out of the program. If we're judgmental, if we're angry, we certainly will not have them in the program very long. We try to impress on our clients that we're there to support them. That might mean that they may disqualify themselves from the program if they keep behaving in the bad way. But that is, or making the wrong choices. I shouldn't say behaving in a bad way, because addiction is not a bad behavior. It is a disease. And we forget that. It's very easy to see behavior and put a label on it that is, and as a matter of fact, there was legislation this last year, I think, where substance abuse disorder is now the official, let's say, official name of the disease, or the title. It isn't narcotic addiction anymore, okay? And we try to be sensitive to that. It means the same thing, but narcotic addiction carries a little judgment, or maybe a lot of judgment, depending on, because of our history and because of where we've experienced a lot of pain, and yeah. So hopefully this program is going to provide a safe place for people to be treated. Thank you.
Okay, and as Dr. Raymond was saying, that it does also take counseling as part of the piece. And so we have Doug Levac from Fish River Rural Health. And from here on in, I'd like to let you know that we want to get through our program. So if you have questions, the panel people will be here when we go to leave, and that maybe you could ask them privately, so that you too could have some privacy when asking your questions, okay? So with that, Doug?
Brent, thanks. I can't remember. John. Walked with both of these gentlemen this morning, and pretty amazing the trek they did across this country. In memory of Brent's sister, which is very, very sad. David, Shelley, no parent should ever lose a child to overdose. But we talk about statistics, and I was just hearing one on WJAGM before I came in, as Maine being the 6th highest state in the nation for opioid overdoses. And the statistics just keep on climbing. I've been working in the field now for 18 years in substance abuse. I'm a duly licensed substance abuse therapist and mental health therapist. And it's very rare that you'll only be treating one part of the person. That's part of why I got duly licensed, because a lot of people suffer from depression, anxiety, other mental health issues. Some of them start using substances to self-medicate those mental health issues. And we talked about stigma around mental health. I think the stigma around substance abuse is even worse. It's the judgment piece of it. It's very, very hard for people with addiction, and especially the addiction to the new drugs. Doc talked about being in the field for some 40 years, but some 31 years ago, he sat with me in his office, and I started my journey in recovery. And that's what it takes. It takes somebody to be willing to talk to you and open their heart to you and allow you to be able to grab a hold of hope when everything is hopeless. And it's hard to make a connection with, the biggest thing that I see for me as a therapist is being able to make that connection with the person next to me. And if I can make a connection, usually, even if it takes a long time, they will get recovery. But that's the biggest part of it, is being able to get that person to trust you. And you being able to motivate them through the stages of change. One of the things we can't forget is addiction is a disease. And it is a disease of the brain. And why we call it a disease of the brain is because it rewires the brain. Alcohol does it, opiates does it, benzos, all the drugs. And now we have more severe drugs, bath salts, meth. They got a synthetic drug right now in Connecticut. They got a huge epidemic it's called synthetic K2 marijuana. And they've had, I think in the past 2 or 3 weeks, they've had 16 deaths, 16 overdoses. So it's really hard, in my opinion, like you talk about the fact that medication-assisted treatment is not the answer, but we can't, when we got people in front of us, not everybody's going to be treated the same way because the drugs affect individuals differently. It rewires their brain differently, each one of them. Some people will work well with Suboxone. Some people will work well with Vivitrol. Some people will need Campril. Some people will need methadone. The one thing that's missing after that is these individuals are usually bankrupt. And I mean bankrupt in more than one way. Because I remember when I hit bottom, and I was bankrupt in every area of life. Spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially, everything. And that's what we have when we have these individuals in our offices. And we don't have the resources for them. And yes, we give them the medication and a session of an hour, but they have to go back out into the real world. And I can tell you that is really, really difficult. And that is the thing that's missing for our people, our young people, older people, anybody. They need to be able to put their lives back together, but they're not going to be able to do it alone. And I know Brent's got a plan. He's going to talk to you a little bit about it. It's something I've had in the back of my mind, and I've talked with other substance abuse counselors about it before, is, being able to have a place where people can rebuild their lives and connect back spiritually and get hope. Because without spirituality, they're not going to be able to stay clean and sober. It just doesn't happen. And it becomes a family disease. It destroys families, and it destroys communities. So, whenever you're seeing somebody struggle, and they're probably using, try to say a kind word instead of judging them. You might be able to make a difference. Thank you.
Next, we have John Azzarolo, who walked with Brett across America.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Azarola. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. Started walking from Key West, Florida to Fort Kent, Maine, January 27th of this year. Been on the road for 202 days. And citing last year's numbers of 198 deaths due to opioids, we've lost over 40,000 people since the day I started walking. And that's unacceptable. Every step I took, I carried somebody with me, whether it was a parent that I met on the side of the road that reached out to us, or the child of one of the people that died. I put the child here in my heart. I've carried so many with me the entire length of this walk. I'd do it again if I could save one. I've had grown men on the side of the road break down in my arms crying because they're so grateful for what I'm doing and what Brett's doing. I've had bikers break down in my arms because their friends lost their battle to opioids and heroin. Had a mother in Georgia meet me on the side of the road with the urn of her son's ashes. And all I could do was hold her and cry. 202 days I've been on this road. I haven't had a single day where I haven't cried on the side of the road. Not one. I've talked to somebody every day that has experienced a loss. It's unacceptable. It comes down to we have to be more compassionate to each other. We have to be more kind to each other. These addicts aren't scumbags. They're not junkies. They're our loved ones. They're our friends. They're our brothers. They're our sisters. They're our parents at times. And somebody loves them. They're not a statistic. They're our loved ones. On the side of the road, having to show a person the compassion, the understanding of their loss, it weighs on me. 9 times out of 10, when they approach us, all they really want is to let somebody know of their pain and to know that there's somebody there that would actually, without judging, listen to their pain. For 202 days, I've done that, and I'll continue to do that. When I first joined with Brett on this walk, I didn't know anything about this opioid problem. I knew people were dying. I didn't know at what rate. And I didn't know if it was just in one area. This is everywhere. And no state's worse than the others. We had walked one day. We entered into a state. Day 1, we picked up 4 used syringes off the side of the road. 4. The second day in that state, we picked up 6. The third day, until we hit our last mile, we didn't pick up a single one. Didn't see a single one. Our last mile, we picked up over 40, and that's unacceptable. These people are out there struggling, and it doesn't matter how they got there. They made a decision one time. The disease took over after that. Raise your hand if you've never made a bad decision. And look around. There's not a single hand up in here. We've all made bad decisions. But do they deserve to die because they made a bad decision? No, they don't. I'm tired. I'm emotionally drained. I'm physically exhausted. But I'll do it again if I have to, because it made a difference. The hardest thing for me to come to grips with on this walk was when a mother would come up to me and say, "You're a hero." I'm just an ordinary guy. I'm just out walking, trying to make a better world for people. And it took me a while to realize, if you see me as a hero, who am I to deny you that? I feel like a hero now. I just walked 2,575 miles. I know that I've actually probably saved one young man's life while I was doing this walk. Brett remembers. We were just into Maine. We were a couple of days into the state. And we were walking on one side of the road, and this young man was walking on the other side of the road. And he had a big bag in each hand, and he was struggling with them. And I'm pushing my cart over there, rickshaw. And he came over to see what we were doing. And I told him what we were doing, and he looked at me, and he started telling me about his life. He started telling me how he wanted to go overdose because his life was so unmanageable. Then he told me, he goes, "And if somebody calls the police and they come for me, I'm going to take out every one of them I can." And all I could do was listen. I didn't know what to say to something like that. And we walked for over a mile, maybe two. And this young man looked at me and goes, "This is where I'm going." And he walked up a driveway to a trailer. It wasn't a very pretty trailer. I could tell where he was going. About 5-6 miles up the road, a car pulled over. Older gentleman asked us if we seen a boy wearing a Batman shirt. I said, "Yes, sir. Seen him, talked to him." He goes, "What's his state of mind?" And I told him, truthfully, how his state of mind was. It was this man's son. I told him where he was going. He goes, "I know the place." Doing what we're doing. He thanked me for listening to what his son had to say. And I guess he went looking again for his son. A couple days later, his brother reached out to Brett anonymously on social media to thank me for just listening to his brother, and told us that his brother was out getting help that he needed. Thank you.
Next, we have Senator Troy Jackson, and he's going to tell us what programs are available on a state level, and hopefully some programs or some action that we can see in the near future. He's just got some information for us.
Well, good evening, everyone. I guess I'm a very reluctant speaker here tonight because hearing from Shelley and Dave, very, very hard, and I met them earlier. I have no words to give to even comprehend what, they've gone through and what they have gone through. I see Julie Taylor sitting there tonight too, someone that I've known for a long time, and really my, condolences to, I don't even, like I said, just amazing that any of you would have to go through that, and the fact that, I have 2 sons. It's, really something that we all have to, like Dr. Raymond said, Doug said, really come to grips with what we're dealing with here. And I don't at all think of myself as an expert in much of anything. And I'm certainly not in this. But, what I have seen, or what I've saw in these last 2 years in the Maine legislature, is that we need to do a lot more. We're nowhere even near scratch the surface of what we're dealing with here. I read an article in the Portland Press Herald, I think before we started the session, and it had like stories of 25 or more people that had overdosed because of opioids. And what struck me then that I probably didn't really even understand was the range of people that was in that story. Certainly young people, but a mass of older people, women, men, people that probably were looked at as well off financially, people that were very poor. Age, like I said, made no difference. It was, it's affecting everyone, all of us. And I think that, tonight, what Brett and Frank have done so importantly is brought light on an issue that, we don't, for whatever reason, want to deal with. This is really, as we can see, very much at home in everyday families and, people that are less fortunate. And so we started this session off, Representative Martin knows, right from the beginning, with legislation that got passed on marijuana. And, we met with the governor's office, and, myself and the governor hadn't always had such a great relationship, but we did, seem to connect during that period, and which probably put us in a better position. But one of the things that he told me, and I'm not, trying to make this an issue with me and the governor, but I think it really is the mindset that a lot of people have in Maine. What he told us, and it's not something that he hasn't said before, was that a whole generation of people would have to die before this issue would actually be resolved. And I'm not willing to accept that. I don't want it to be somebody, I don't want it to be someone like Shelley and Dave's son. I don't want it to be any one of your children or parents or anything like that. As it was said earlier, we all matter. We're all important. And so I put forward an opioid task force, and we called it a task force so that it didn't have to go to the governor's office for him to sign. And that way we'd be sure that we'd have a shot at it. And when the task force actually started up, one of the people that from the beginning, early on, spoke was Sheriff Kevin Joyce from Cumberland County. Has obviously seen a lot of this happen, in the Portland area and Cumberland County. And when they asked him, what do you think is the greatest thing that we could do to help stop or curb, these deaths, he said, pass Medicaid expansion. And it's just exactly for the lady that, right there, that spoke. How many people that don't have health insurance, or when they fall into this addiction, lose their health insurance and have no treatment options at all. And so there's another factor right here that, there's a large debate about Medicaid expansion. A lot of people don't want to pass it because they think it's just for poor people that don't want to work and things like that, but it's not. It's for a lot of people that's fallen into hard times for a whole different range of things. I'm certainly a big advocate for it, but I just want you to understand that that is something that we could be doing in this state, giving people treatment options that they don't have and don't have access to. And that's a big deal. I mean, it's a huge deal. I mean, you're hearing it from a respected law enforcement person, and I think it shocked a lot of people when he said it. That would be the single biggest thing that you could do to help with this opioid crisis. So I hope, you know, tonight people might take something from that, because I know an awful lot of people that don't feel that we should do that in this state. And that's a reason that we ought to. We also heard extensively, and we heard tonight, you know, about Narcan. And there's a debate about if we should be supplying Narcan. Well, you know, obviously, Shelley and Dave's son was brought back to life once with that, and if, you know, things would have been different, or if they would have been able to get a certain type of treatment option, you know, maybe that would have made a difference. But for people that, you know, have this scourge happen to them, I think it's important that we allow law enforcement, ambulances, things like that, to carry that, so that people can have that extra chance that I think we all deserve. And so, you know, we did this past session, you know, during that conversation with the governor, he agreed to put $3 million towards what they called home health agencies. At this time, next to nothing of that money has actually been spent in that regard. In the budget that was vetoed and we overrode, we put $6.6 million into a hub and spoke program. The hub being a hospital that could, you know, initially diagnose, help people. The spokes being treatment, you know, counseling, all those different things that, you know, someone would need. That is, you know, starting to come up as we speak, and really $6.6 million is not enough, you know, for what we actually need to do. We made fentanyl a Class A crime now. People that, you know, are dealing in it. There's absolutely no reason for fentanyl, and people that are selling it to other people should go to jail for a very, very long time. So, you know, one of the things that, you know, when, like, getting back to Narcan, people, I mean, we do polling, you know, we hear issues extensively from focus groups. You know, we have a lot of people, like I said, in the state that don't believe that Narcan should be made available. And the single biggest reason that we hear that is because they feel that their children aren't able to get EpiPens, things like that. They're not able to get health insurance. I understand that really strongly, what the need for health, you know, quality health insurance is in the state, in this country. But it's incumbent on all of us to let people know that while we need to fight and make that happen eventually, hopefully, until that time, we can't turn our backs on people that are less fortunate and need treatment options, need Narcan. You know, many people are struggling, and I get that, but, you know, we can't let, you know, some people fall through the cracks because, you know, the state is not going the way it is. And Dr. Raymond talked about, you know, doctors, you know, I think he put it in a way that, you know, we're part of the problem. I don't see really, you know, doctors being a big part of the problem. I mean, I see an industry he brought up, and I've read that, you know, 5 million pills in a town that had less than 5,000 people. You know, we have an industry, Big Pharma, that has created this mess, has really unleashed something unbelievable onto all of our people. And that is an issue that, you know, has to be dealt with, not only here in this state, but in this country. Because that's really where it's coming. 418 people died in the state last year from opioid addiction. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And when you look at their stories, it could happen to any one of us. You know, I obviously am a logger by trade. I understand that. I understand the lobster industry, and I hear stories all the time, and I don't only hear them, but I actually see them. Now, I see young men that get up and buy energy drinks and guzzle them like it's water so that they can keep up with an incredibly long day. And that works when you're 20 years old. But as time goes on and you get older, and that back injury that you can't get rid of can't go away, people start searching for more things to keep going, not be looked at as lazy, someone that doesn't want to work. And that's the stigma that unfortunately is here too often. And when those people get addicted to something because they were trying to keep up, trying to keep making the payments, then they're really in a position that no one should ever have to feel like. Addicted to a drug that's legal, that was given to you because you didn't feel right. You couldn't work at the same pace you wanted to. And so I would say, as a Maine legislator, I've failed, we've failed, and we need to do a lot more. We need to put more money into recovery, not just jailing people. We need to make sure that when someone wants to get the services, get the need to recover, that's there for them. And right now, you can't say that. There's just not enough options for people to go through right now. So I would say, if anything, I know what my job is. I know Representative Martin knows what his job is. But we really need to, as communities, start reaching out to more and more of our neighbors, friends, family, and explain to people that this is something that's can affect any one of us at any time. And let's not let people's mindset keep this in the dark any longer. So I want to thank both of you. I want to express my sincere condolences. And I want to thank both of you for doing everything you did. 2,700 miles, 2,700? 2,500. And I complain about driving 300. But I mean, seriously, look, the room, I've never talked to this many people about this issue, so there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And at this time, it's our big finale. Mr. Brett Bramble.
Hi. Thank you all for coming, listening, staying around. I don't know if these lights are going to cut off on me or not. Thank you all for coming and sharing. This is some powerful stuff. My journey started 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, when my sister passed away, Brittany. She's coming up, but look, she beautiful woman, inside and out. That's her right there. She was on a mission trip in Jamaica on a bus, doing the Lord's work. She was a mother of 3 boys. She was a dance instructor. She had a bad back. She was on pain pills. She liked them a lot. Next thing you know, she used heroin and it killed her. It could be a longer story, but that's the gist. That tore our family apart. What they said made too much sense for me. You don't want to understand the way that they understand. It's a pain nobody needs to have, and it can be prevented. It sure can. 2 years after my sister passing, I didn't know what I was going to do. First of all, when my sister died, that changed my life forever. But I knew I wanted to do something. Her heart, her love, her compassion for others, it came into me. And I've been learning how to be compassionate ever since, because I didn't have much for it before then. but she gave it to me. I'll be honest. And it's been life-changing for me. It's changed my life. I dedicated my life to honor her, trying to save a life, trying to stop another family from going through what mine went through. At the time, she died in 2014. At the time, there were 129 people that died every year. The year after that, 144. The year after that, 175. The numbers for 2017 just came out. There were 198 people a day that died in our country from a drug overdose. That's more than any crisis that's ever in the history of the world. The AIDS epidemic, the peaks of the AIDS epidemic didn't get close to that. More people died in the Vietnam War than they did, or more people died in 2017 than in the entire length of the Vietnam War, just from drug overdose deaths. And I think just from opioids. This is the problem all over the country. I've walked the country twice. I don't know if you know that. 2 years after she passed away, I walked from Delaware to San Francisco, straight across. Took 8 months. Grief did that. I had nothing. I had me in that jogging stroller, which is Lieutenant Dan, by the way. I had everything I needed in there. I walked. The support that I received blew my mind. I was reluctant to receive it. I remember I started off thinking, oh, I'm going to do this survival tough thing, and all these mothers were coming and helping me and giving me stuff, and I'm like, I don't want your help. I'm trying to do something hard. But seriously, that's what I learned. In that whole trip, what I learned was that this country's in pain, too much pain, and there's a shame associated with it. Why do you need somebody pushing a jogging stroller through town to give you the strength to talk about your loved one who suffers with addiction? You should be able to go to your church and ask for help. You should be able to come here. You know, this needs to happen. And so what I've learned from over 5,000 miles of walking across the country at 3 miles an hour, what I've learned is that communities, when they come together, stuff gets done. Mona met me outside of Portland. She saw us on the side of the road. Took a picture, Facebook post. Look at this. This is a good community. Addiction could tear this apart right away. It could come in here, and y'all are done. It can do that. You can prevent it by coming together, taking action. It's amazing. This is amazing. All it takes is some action and some compassion. One of the things we talked about was Narcan. Narcan needs to be everywhere. The U.S. Surgeon General of the United States, Surgeon General, the guy who says don't smoke, he wants every household in America to have Narcan. There's no discussion, no debate. There's no, does it inspire people to use? Who cares? It saves lives. You need to have it. Don't be the headline. Don't be the town in the headlines that 19 overdose deaths last week. Be the town, be the headline that says 19 people's lives saved because they had Narcan available. Right? And so that's something right there that you guys can do as a community is get that. You can find it somehow, some way through some kind of organization, something. I know the high school can get it for free. There's ways to do it. But it takes work, it takes action, and you got to care more. And you do have to support people who are suffering with this because you can get better. People can get better. And it's a wonderful thing. They give back to the community in ways that they way more than they took. So support people getting better. It pays off in the long run in every way. In every way. It's amazing. And I mean, there are resources here. And with there's so many different ways, and everybody, it is a case-by-case basis. But we've learned that to get off of heroin, medication-assisted treatment is the most effective way to get off of heroin. And so it's a good thing, but it has to be done with counseling, just like you said. It doesn't have to be, but it's most effective that way. And most importantly, when properly managed. That's the key. There's a lot of irresponsibility that has been going on in medicine, and There are good ones. There are good ones who can do it, and we have to hold them accountable to it more and more. And I think it should start to turn around. The more we know, the better. And again, support from the community. You nailed it. After all that, you have to have the support. These people going through it, you can't keep getting beat up and beat up and beat up and expect to win. It's too hard. So support each other. We got so much support, and look, we made it. We walked across the country. That's hard, too. It's really hard. You know, we're getting beat up every day, but we're getting lifted by support. Let's do that. Stick is amazing. John, I call him Stick. This is his nickname. But John, the fellow who walked with me, when I said I was going to do this walk, this East Coast walk from Key West to Maine, Fort Kent, here we are. It's been over a year since we started to plan this. And I told you, I did the walk before, all alone. I think I needed to be alone. I had my grief. I had some own stuff I was going through, wanted to heal from, recover from. And it worked out well, but I didn't want to go alone on this one. I needed some people. And so I invited anybody who wanted to come with me. Put it out on social media. If anybody wants to walk across the country with me, come on. Sure enough. It didn't take long at all. You know, he was one of the first people. He said, "Look, I've got some experience in hiking, and like he said up here, I don't know much about this opioid crisis, but I'm going to learn. I really want to do I want to do this. I want to support you, your mission." And he told me, he goes, "I used to be a stand-up comedian, so I'm good at making people laugh, and I promise I'll provide smiles along the miles." I was like, "Dude, you're in. You know, you're coming." And we started to plan. We had other people. I mean, it was an amazing thing just to come together. We didn't even meet until the first day. The day before is when we first met in face to face. And here we are, just about to embark on this crazy journey. And let me tell you what, he held true to his word. He learned so much about this crisis. Learned so much even beforehand. He provided many smiles along the miles. And he walked every single one of them. He turned 60 in Washington, D.C. You know, come on. The stuff he's had to go through, the pain, the stories, you saw the emotional demand that this takes. And I'm just, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, Jesse, I'm doing it. Jesse, this pretty woman over here, joined us about 3 weeks ago down in Ellsworth, Maine. We walked, when we were walking through South Carolina, we met her family. Jessie lost her brother Brian and her boyfriend Christian. We stayed with their family. They took us in, stayed for, I think, 3 nights. We got to know her family, and she felt so compelled to join us here. She was up in Maine, and she had some things she wanted to work out. She contacted us and asked if she could join. Of course you can. It's not going to be easy. We've been walking for 6 months. We're on a steady pace. We have a schedule to keep. If you can walk 20 miles a day and keep up with us, sure thing. Didn't know if she would do it or not. Well, let me tell you, she got every item on the list that I told her to get. She prepared, she walked, she came out, met us in Ellsworth, Maine, and she has walked over 300 miles with us at the pace that we were going for 3 months. Yeah. Not only that, hey Domino, she made it all the way too, by the way. Come get your glory. Yeah. Domino's awesome. Back to Jesse. Seriously, when we leave here tomorrow, we're going back to Ellsworth. Jesse has signed on. She wants to be dropped off in Ellsworth where she started. She's going to walk south. She's going all the way back to Key West. She's got a friend coming with her, so she's going to need support too. She's going to do this on her own. She's an awesome woman. So. It takes a certain kind of crazy to want to do something like that. Trust me, I know. But you know, you won't make it unless you have that bigger purpose. You got to have that bigger purpose, because there are times where you're down and you need that motivation, and we're not strong enough for hard stuff as humans. We need a bigger purpose. You need something to believe in, something to fight for. And she's got it. It's also self-discipline, determination. These things can get you anywhere. You just, a little bit at a time. She knows her goal, the end, a little bit every day, and you're there. We can all do stuff. We can do anything we set our minds to do. Again, it's easier with support. It's got to have that bigger purpose, that motivation. Community. Back to community, then I'll end this thing. This is it. I love the memories that I'll have for the rest of my life that this community gave me. This morning, we had this many people show up and walk the last mile of our journey with us. That meant so much. We had police sirens, and we didn't have to run. We had, we had the sit-go at the sign with our names on the sign. I mean, that's just, we felt so proud, so proud. I'm so honored. My sister, beaming, and it means so much to me. That's my bigger purpose. So thank you for that. I don't want to see this community go down. It can happen. Please take all this serious. Everything here, these people really have their best interest, your best interest at their heart. There's some good information. Thank you all so much. But yeah, we'll go home. I think, what was it? Forrest Gump. I'm tired. I think I'll go home now. All right.
So I'm going to make this short because I know we all want to go. Those of you who have questions, you can feel free to come and talk to somebody on the panel. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that when they say knowledge is power, didn't realize how much knowledge you get when you start putting together something and organizing something such as this. And then you wonder, like, why are we having to do this? And am I the one really who is meant to do this? And then you get this calling where you feel like, yeah, this was, and just knowing that, like I've had a personal experience recently where somebody came up to me who was on Zarcan and needed a dwelling for the evening and needed food. Without working this, I probably wouldn't have been as alerted and as compassionate as I was, because I had done the research and I had heard the stories and I knew better what needed to be done. And so I applaud all of you for being here today, and I'm so happy that we all got together and got the information that we need. And I just want to thank you all for being here.
I have a question.
Yes.
Question. I really would like to know something from Brett. Your opinion on something. I think, I'm sorry, Laura, to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
And say, I know you want questions, but I think it'd be important. I think everybody would know this. All this evening we've been talking about helping people that are obviously addicted, getting them over and all that. We're throwing a life jacket to somebody that's downriver drowning. How do we get upriver to prevent this from starting? Instead of them being downriver thrown.
Yeah, that one's a hard one, because that's the answer that I think, it's opinion based, of course, is to stop the flow of drugs. But I don't know how to do that. I don't think that can happen. I know we're limiting the amount of prescriptions that are coming out, but how do you stop the influx of illegal street drugs? That's above me. I know that they try, but that's the stream. So we're fighting that. That's what we're stuck with right now.
I think.
Yeah, if you got something.
The biggest problem that I've seen over the past 18 years is when I started working in recovery, this state spent quite a bit of money in prevention.
Yeah. Harm reduction.
We don't spend any money in prevention. There is no money for it.
Oh.
So we are a country that reacts to problems. Okay, and that's where we're at. We're reacting to a major crisis. We need to start getting ahead of these crises, and the only way to do that is to educate people, like we are now. We do have we have another event coming up September 15th up at Tent Mountain, where we are going to have a recovery awareness piece where it's going to be open to the families of people that are in recovery, anybody who wants to know about addiction. There's going to be a panel of speakers there that are going to be speaking on their journey with their addiction. And we need more of that, okay? We need more peer support groups. We need, AA helped a lot of people in their journey with alcoholism. They still do, okay? But we need more prevention, and that's what's going to help us prevent, get ahead of this crisis and prevent other crises, other ones. We used to have community voices. I see some of the people that are on that with me. We've lost that as a community. That was one of the only prevention pieces that we had left. And the funds aren't, everything gets cut.
I'd like to add something to that. The education is a big thing. Starting young is a big thing. Dave was always bringing home drugs and things and showing them to the boys and saying, look, they were 7, 8, 9, 10 on the way up. And he was saying, look, this is what you're going to see at a party. You see this at a party, you go. You be your own person. We taught them not to put themselves in harm's way of drugs. Speaking to your children about it, no matter how old they are. We have a granddaughter that's 3. She's well aware her dad died. She knows, she has memories from when he was alive. She knows we're making new memories every day. And she pinky sweared with her Pepe that she was not going to smoke and she was not going to do drugs. And she's 3. So I think that earlier you start, as long as it's the level of the child, I think that's going to help, because that's a whole new generation that wouldn't have to do drugs. With everything working as it is, with the pharmaceutical companies getting slowed down, with the doctors on board, and it's not, unfortunately, it's not just one thing. If it was, and we knew what it was, we'd still have our children today. I think it's a combination of a lot of things that's going to need to work together. This is the beginning. Talking about it. You know what? We went to a family Narcan meeting, Narcan's Anonymous, whatever it was, I don't know.
Narcotic Anonymous.
Yes, we are not addicted. We probably should have gone a long time ago when our children were. We almost didn't realize it existed. I was looking at some things in a pamphlet that was given to us in Presque Isle the other night. They have all kinds of meetings right at Forest Hill Manor, and I don't know if you knew that. I didn't know that. Attend those meetings. You don't have to be the one addicted. You don't have to be the one affected. You could have that perfect family where nobody has a problem. Just go, because you think you don't have a problem, but you all are going to have a problem. It's going to be the kids you raised. It's going to be your nephew. It's going to be your daughter's boyfriend. You're going to end up dealing with it in some way. And the most important part is to educate yourself about it and know how to get help for these people. That they're going to need to want to go get the help, but the more they know that they have the support and the love from family and friends, that's going to want them to get better. I don't know many addicts that don't want to get better. They all want to get better. And recovery, cancer goes into remission, recovery doesn't. You're always a recovering addict. And it's a hard road. People know what it is. And you have to keep yourself informed, you know, just personally inform yourself. You know, there's no classes to take, but there's these meetings, there's groups. You know, you're sitting out at Rocks having your hot dog, talk about it with people, you know what I mean? Get together, you're having a party at camp, say, hey, guess what? The other day I was at this meeting, blah, blah, and there you go. Get those balls rolling. You know, the doctors are getting the balls rolling, the congressmen are getting the balls rolling. Dave and I would talk till we're blue in the face and tell Adam and Sean's story, so that if we help just one family or one person or just somebody, if we make them understand how hard this is, then they haven't died for nothing. And that's what people need to do. You see drugs in the area, report it. Call the police. They love that. That's their thing. That's their thing, you know? You report that stuff. Get it out there. Help someone who's hungry and can't afford anything because he's a drug addict. You know? That's what she did the other night. She brought that man something to eat. You know, don't look at them like, you know what? My kids were my kids. They weren't the drugs, okay? If you saw them when they were high, they were drug addicts, they were losers, they were dummies, they were whatever, right? But those were my boys. These are gonna be your people. And you have to give them the compassion and the love that they have to feel to be able to get better. So that's kind of our take on it.
I think that we're all feeling pretty overwhelmed, and to be honest with you, you know, every time I go to the Spousal Clinic to provide a service that I believe works, I still feel overwhelmed. We're still very ignorant. I mean, read about this, I hear people talk, you know, and we're still pretty ignorant about the problem and about some of the solutions. And I think we have to remind ourselves and try to be positive if there's something positive to be said. Because you're going to give people hope. And if you have tools that you can use, maybe they're not very effective, and some people, and with other people it might be. It doesn't matter. Step out and take a chance and do it. I was not trained to be an addictionologist at all. I'm not. I'm just a general family doc. But, you know, when you see people in pain, physical and emotional and spiritual, you know, don't be afraid to reach out and to be there. And I think that's what Laurie did. And I think that's what we're doing tonight. I mean, all of us, because we're here. And I spread the good news.
Thank you, Lori. So with that being said, I just wanted to say, that while putting this together, and you think like it will never hit your family, or you think it will never hit somebody that you know. And I had a little cousin, as I'm putting this together, out in Connecticut, who passed away of an overdose while I was doing this. And so it does hit your people. And unfortunately, it will hit your people. And so I'm just here tonight to say, I don't think when George asked the question, like, how do we get upstream from here? It's not by judgment, and it's not by criticism, and it's not by shame. And as Shelley has said, I heard her say 100 times, only love is going to get them there. And I'm just going to end with that. Only love is going to get them there.